Hi, welcome to AMA Puget Sound's new Coffee Talk series. Very excited to be broadcasting live right now. And I want to talk a little bit about AMA Puget Sound. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization serving marketing professionals in the Puget Sound region, Seattle, Tacoma, Everett, Bellevue, West Seattle region for about 76 years since 1944. We could use all the help we can get. So we are looking for some board members right now if you're interested in joining. Today, I'd like to get right into it. We have a special guest, Bryan Rutberg. Hi, Bryan.
Good morning. Hello, everybody out there in webcast land.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you so much. You're our fourth guest on our Coffee Talk series. So thank you so much. Just a little background. Bryan was scheduled to actually do this as a presentation, a keynote presentation back in June. Unfortunately, due to what was happening in the country, specifically with Black Lives Matter and the tragedy with George Floyd, that it was not a good time. So when this opportunity came up, I thought, Bryan, let's have you back. Let's have you instead of have you back. Let's have you and let's talk about this rather than a keynote presentation, just a one-on-one chat in real time. So welcome.
My pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation and the re-invitation. I've gotten a bit out of AMA over the years, so it's fun to be able to give back.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And then just to let everybody know, where are you right now? What part of the country?
Where are I? If you are a Puget Sounder participating in the AMA Puget Sound thing, if I say Queen Anne, you'll know exactly where I am. I'm up
beautiful neighborhood.
Yeah, love it up here.
Yep. For those of you outside Seattle, Queen Anne is a neighborhood of North Seattle. So, and I'm in Renton Highlands, so I'm in a suburb just 10 miles outside the city. So, yeah, we cover the whole region, like I said. So again, welcome, and let's get right into it. So we have about 28 minutes. First of all, what do you do? What is it you do?
I help leaders and their organizations build stronger relationships with the key audiences that they need to reach. Most of the time, that's their customers, but I've also worked with folks to help them build better relationships with investors, employees, in the case of nonprofits, donors, and volunteers. And I do that through teaching great communications, helping people become better business communicators, message development, storytelling, public speaking skills, business writing skills. And the consulting that I do is usually targeted at helping companies that have a reasonable sized installed base of customers or clients try to bring them closer in and get their voice more in their heads to build longer lasting, more strong relationships so that they can get all the benefits of that.
And we know how important relationship building is.
Oh, yes.
Even when you're, no matter what you're doing in marketing, that's always important. So yeah, like I said, let's get right into it. The big thing that I wanted to more or less talk about, the theme, obviously, do your customers love you enough? But since we've kind of condensed this into just a one-on-one chat rather than a keynote, if you could break that down, can you start us off? What's a story of when you felt loved enough by a company you personally buy from? And by the way, I've heard this story and I love this story.
Well, now of course,
or unless you've changed the story.
No, I have a bunch of stories that I tell that about my own connection with brands. Refresh my memory. Which story did I tell you?
This is where I'm a bad marketer. It wasn't so much what I remember about the story; it's how I felt.
Well, and
and I had warm fuzzies, and
great
it was
communication is about driving emotion. I'm guessing
I want to say it was with a hotel.
I think I have another idea. Let me throw one out here. Yeah, when I mean, as you point out, the lecture that I often give to corporate audiences or conferences or whatever is called "Do Your Customers Love You Enough?" And if you go to my website, that's the thing that hits you first in the face. That big question: Do your customers love you enough?
Yeah.
It's just what drives me, because I have indeed felt really connected to some of the brands that I've interacted with over the years In the early 2000s, when digital video recorders were first coming out,
Mm-hmm.
I got a great new job. My family moved from the East Coast to Silicon Valley, and I discovered that there were these things called digital video recorders, and I thought, wow, that is it for me. And I went out and did a little research and bought a TiVo machine, and quickly found out that there was an online community of TiVo enthusiasts, people who were geeked out over the technology,
Mm-hmm.
who really liked the convenience that it gave them. And given that it was Silicon Valley, both where there's lots of geeks and where TiVo was headquartered, we actually, through an online forum where all of us got connected and started swapping stories about how to hack your TiVo, and calling different shows to people's attention, because now that you can record everything, why wouldn't you, right?
Right.
We actually ended up coming to the attention of the TiVo company itself. And a number of us actually started doing live meetups so we could get together in person.
Nice.
And we did things like, barbecues and meetings at parks and things like that. Because, hey, I know you online. We've built this community.
Yep.
Now this is, and the TiVo folks, two great things happened. One, they started showering us with swag, which is just, a great, when you've got real fans, you want to invest in that, because those are the people who propagate your brand and say nice things about you and defend you on social media. And what did we do in return? Not directly as a quid pro quo. A group of us actually started doing fundraisers to put audio-visual centers into children's hospitals. And the bigger geeks among us would actually, not including myself, I was on the promotional side, we'd go build relationships with children's hospitals, and they'd give us a room where we would install TiVo equipment, modern looking televisions, and just something so that kids in children's hospitals and their families would have a place where they could let down their hair. Talk about a symbiosis between brand and fans, and how much fans do for a brand. That was one of my points of inspiration that was sort of personal.
Yeah. And I mean, at that point, it feels authentic. It feels as though the company really understands, the different types of audiences that are going to be using their product. Corporate responsibility right there. That's a great example. I think that's a wonderful example. And wow, that's very impactful.
And the work that I get the privilege of doing with my clients, I'm always reaching for them to, how do we build community? How do we get people to go from, I'm a customer of yours or a client of yours, to I am a repeat customer or client, to I'm regular customer or client, and then try and get them into those next levels of, I'm a fan, I'm an advocate, and so on.
That's, yeah. And so going off of that, building relationships with customers, what are some things companies should be measuring to see if, what we are doing worth it?
Yep. There's, for sure, there's two clear measures that are pretty much the standard starting point. The first is the ubiquitous question that we've started seeing over the last decade or so. On a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to refer, to suggest to a colleague that they use the brand, to refer our company?
Oh gosh, I don't know how many of those surveys I've been asked to do. I in the last 10 years, I can't even tell you. And it grates on me, and especially it grates on me because it's bogus.
Well, now wait a minute. I will argue that it's not bogus, but it is not by itself enough. There is valuable information that comes from getting the name for that, Net Promoter Score. 9 or 10 means you're a promoter of the brand. 8 or 7 gets you marked as neutral. 6 or below, that is a detractor. And there's a little bit of math that goes on of subtracting your detractors from your advocates, and then adding 100, and you get your score. And for any given industry, it's pretty easy to find online average scores, median scores, and so you can kind of position yourself. And it's great for knowing how am I doing vis-a-vis the competition, but it also starts to give you the opportunity to compete with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
grow that.
Right.
Company I'm working with currently is using NPS as one of their measures. Again, not exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
They are taking the action of each time a client, and this is a company with several hundred clients, each time they see that they're receiving a 6 or lower, a member of the leadership team, someone out of the C-suite, picks up a phone and calls and says, "This is concerning to us. Let's talk."
Okay.
Believe how much it not only keeps customers around who might otherwise be flight risks,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but also inspires them. If you get a call like that, aren't you going to tell somebody about it? You'll never guess what some company did to me today. They called because I gave them a, and if you're asking frequently enough, you've got lots of possible touch points and lots of data points.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the occasional person says, "Oh my God, I've answered the same question from 38 different vendors to me
Yep.
100,000 times over the last year." It's useful there. The other useful measure that is a great starting point is customer lifetime value, CLV or CLTV.
Mm-hmm.
Three simple numbers. What's the average spend that a customer is making with you? How
Mm-hmm.
frequently, or not, how many times over a given period do they do that? And how many of those periods do they remain a customer?
Yeah.
So if you can increase a company's average spend with you, the number of times they interact with you, or keep them, instead of for a 2-year span or a 3-year span, for a 4 or 5 or 10-year span, you've
Mm-hmm.
greatly increased the take you get from that client. I argue,
Sure.
of course, that those two things, customer lifetime value and net promoter score, not enough, but a
Mm-hmm.
very good starting point for what to measure. What I
Sure.
want
Sure.
with clients to measure beyond that is, great, if you've got your customers loving you,
Yeah.
are they giving you referrals? Are they letting you ask them to tell you their story so you can turn it into a case study or a reference?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Are they telling you on a regular basis what they think? Are
Yeah.
you doing focus groups with them? Are you building a customer advisory board or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
And those are further measures that you can take as you get more mature.
Interesting. So I actually have a scary story for you.
Tell me.
In a previous employer that I had, I was in charge of customer surveys from the website as well as post buyer. And the NPS score would average -36 to -53.
That's terrible.
Yep. And I was the person in charge manually aggregating all of the data, all of the the ranking, as well as all of the open-ended comments. And there were so many things that were so preventable that I would bring up every month. Okay, here's the new batch of survey information. So um, I wanted to touch on this specifically because the first thing that you said with all of this is you basically have to address it head on. That's one of the biggest things is you have to address it. And unfortunately, the leadership team where I was working, ostrich, head in the sand type of situation, and just said, well, make the survey. I think their quote was, well, make the survey written as such that we would increase our net promoter score. And I'm like, I can't do that.
I don't like
I can't do that.
And so let's change. I don't like the answer, so let's change the question. That is head in the sand. Now, fortunately, by the time someone has brought me in for a conversation, let alone engaged me for an assessment, even before you do any work on the back end, they're ready, obviously, to invest in how do we get better.
Yeah.
But yeah, that NPS question, it's unforgiving because there's only one way to phrase it, and you get the results you get. So the immediate follow-up from a leadership perspective, from a leadership team, is certainly important. But as a next step, as you're telling me the group didn't do, is you've got to look at the touch points in the client journey, the customer journey, where you're creating dissatisfaction, and then go back and work the process, work the model, so that you eliminate those dissatisfiers.
Yep.
It's often, I mean, when I create a set of findings for a client where I've done an assessment, it always, and this is not anything unique in the consulting world, here's your low-hanging fruit, Here's stuff you should
Yep.
think about in the medium range. Here's things you should think about in the long range.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the things that can fix NPS, many of the things you can do to fix a client's perception of you are relatively minor tweaks to a process, or it's better communications. And those are not difficult fixes.
No,
There's no excuse for being as bad as your, except for just, and if you're just printing money, and it doesn't matter if your clients continue to work with you, or if you're the only game in town, that's super. But monopolies tend not to last until they get really big.
Exactly. So I wanted to also touch on what you had just said, the statement just before about the low-hanging fruit. And it made me think of a video that I had to watch in a marketing class many, many, many years ago called Give 'em a Pickle. And I'm not sure how many marketing students have heard of this, or if it was a really, really old video. And in fact, I think you can only buy it. You can't just stream it or watch it.
I haven't heard of it, but I bet I know where you're going. And it's a great idea, right? Go
Absolutely.
ahead.
But I believe it came from like the 70s or 80s. And it was around a restaurant, just a family restaurant, not a chain, I don't think. I think it was just a guy started a restaurant, and it's a family restaurant. Everybody loves it. And it was a really popular restaurant simply because no matter what tiny request a customer had, just give it to them. Make them happy. That's usually what it is. Unfortunately, we live in the Yelp era now, but at the time, his thought was, why? They're asking for 2-3 slices of pickles. Why say no? What's the purpose? And so that just always stuck with me. And since I have a retail background before I got into marketing, my gosh, that rang so true of just, customer just asks for something minor, low-hanging fruit, like you said, just give it to them.
And the classic customer delight case study is right here in our hometown, our friends at Nordstrom, right? The story, probably apocryphal, but who knows, of the person bringing their snow tires into to Nordstrom's like, I need to return these. Never has sold snow tires, and yet the story goes they found a way to satisfy this customer. Okay, that's great. The Give 'em a Pickle story reminds me of when I was very early in my career. I had just stepped into my first professional level sales job post MBA. I was at Hewlett Packard, and I spent a few years in marketing, and then I moved into sales, and I immediately found myself in a sales class. And one of the stories that we were given something to read, photocopied papers back in the day, and it was by one of the noted business writers, Peter Drucker or Jeffrey Collins, or I don't remember exactly who, but told the story of going into his neighborhood grocery store. And back in the day when you had to swipe make a physical imprint of a credit card.
I'm old enough. I had to do it.
Yeah, right.
I've had to do those.
You had to call the credit card company to get clearance on the transaction. It took this vendor, it took the bodega owner a while to get the clearance on the credit card. Jim Collins or whoever is waiting and waiting. That awkward silence when you're waiting with a stranger for an elevator, or someone is looking sort of apologetic about being on the phone for a while trying to get the clearance. Eventually it came, and the writer told the story of the shopkeeper grabbing a handful of candies out of the nickel candy jar, and dropping them in the grocery bag and just saying, for the wait. And this one little thing is when I'm sure this person still ended up going to their neighborhood big grocery store to do much of their shopping. But in the telling that I got a chance to read, this is the thing that kept him coming back to that little store over and over and over again, and feeling like it was his neighborhood place, feeling a sense of ownership over it, and wanting to make sure that they succeeded. Little things matter just a tremendous amount. And yes, it is low-hanging fruit.
It is. I actually have a story with that. Again, from my retail background, many years ago, I think I was either in high school or early college. I worked at Claire's boutique with the ear piercing. And yes, I did
where my now 25-year-old daughter used to get her ears pierced when she was
Oh, yeah.
12 or 13. Yep.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, that was my job. And an older woman came in one day. She had never had her ears pierced. She had just had them pierced like 6 to 8 weeks prior for the first time in her life. I think she claimed to be like 60 or 70. And she couldn't get the backs off because anybody who has had their ears pierced at a place like Claire's, the backs are really hard to get off for that first pair. And she couldn't physically get them off. So she's like, I know you don't actually do this, but can you help me? There was nobody in the store. I said, of course. She ended up spending $30 to $50 after that in earrings and bracelets and all sorts of stuff. And under the table, she gave me a $2 tip. And I'm like, ma'am, I can't take this.
I was meeting for the first time. I had a phone call or an electronic call, web call with a gentleman that I had met online just earlier this week. And he's in the consulting business now in a similar spot to what I do, but he had worked for many years at an auto dealership. And the story he relayed to me, talking about how much an individual can make a difference for an organization and how it's important it is to empower your frontline workers.
Mm-hmm.
He was asked at one point in the story, he told me, well, are you the owner, I guess, of the dealership? And his response was, well, I'm not the owner, but I have a sense of ownership. What is it you need? I will take ownership of your issue. Yep. Maybe the story, since you remembered hotel, it's possible one of the stories we discussed was the Ritz-Carlton example that I sometimes cite. Yeah, I mean, just little things.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine who's now a TV script writer used to work when she was younger as behind the front desk at a Ritz-Carlton. Mm-hmm. And what's the proper answer when someone says, thank you?
You're welcome.
In the Ritz-Carlton world, it's not no problem or no worries or you're welcome even. It's my pleasure. And just that little psychological bit, I'll hold the door for you as you come in. My pleasure. Now, this woman, years later, was overseeing a shoot of a script she had written. She was in New Orleans. She happened to be staying at a Ritz-Carlton. And she mentioned, offhandedly to some member of that, I used to work at Ritz-Carlton's. And for the remainder of her time working on NCIS New Orleans, each time she was in town to do a shoot, she would find fruit basket or flowers or tickets to something one evening or chocolates with a welcome home note. Little things.
Little things.
Difference. A couple of weeks back, I read online about an Etsy seller who had a particular t-shirt available that I thought, oh my gosh, I want that t-shirt. So I went online and I ordered it. Had no idea, because she had been featured in a national publication, that this was a new venture for her. A week before I got the t-shirt and the other things I had purchased, I got a thank you.
Yes.
Handwritten.
Yep.
Right? Thank you so much for supporting my new Etsy t-shirt store. I'm grateful for your trust despite my low amount of reviews. I had no idea. Please take care, stay safe, and a little political message based on the shirt that I had purchased.
Sure.
This cost her, 55 cents to send to me, plus the time it took. And here I am with the national distribution that this webcast has. How many millions of people are going to see me promoting her store, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Here's a note I literally just got 2 days ago from an Etsy seller, and it said, thank you so much. Yeah, it's Etsy sellers. It is. And how I feel with Etsy, it's almost like that hometown feel of, well, that's just what you do. Somebody buys something, you just send them a thank you note. That's just what you do.
And
I love that.
I hadn't seen that before, but clearly someone at Etsy is giving good counsel to their sellers.
They are.
Or just and how marvelous is that? Because if you have an Etsy store and things go crazy, maybe you're going to be inclined to build your own storefront. Yeah. But then again, maybe not, because these guys are really good at helping their vendors market.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about building that loyalty. Do your
Exactly.
customers love you enough? And if the person who sent you a note and the person who sent me a note,
Yep.
wouldn't it be weird if we were buying from the same place, Julie?
Yeah. I don't know.
But
I buy from a lot of people on Etsy.
okay. Well, I have not been a huge Etsy user, but yeah,
Mhm.
someone's giving good
Yeah.
counsel. And
Yeah.
actually, sometimes
Yeah.
when I deliver my talk on "Do Your Customers Love You Enough," I present it as sort of a top 10 list. When I do it that way, number 10 is always write a thank you note,
Hmm.
right? Whatever your
Yep.
parents told you, whatever your third grade teacher told you,
Yep.
it pays off.
Yeah. I actually have my own Etsy store. I just started. I'm into Pyrex. Yes, I love Pyrex. So I found a few pieces that were pretty awesome. I'm not going to go into it, but yeah, somebody finally bought one of the pie plates that I had, and along with it, I had a thank you note, and I included my wonderful pie crust recipe.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
For our kids' respective graduations, our daughter just finished nursing school in the spring, and our son
Mm-hmm.
finished undergraduate. We invested in art pieces for them. They have all the physical stuff that they
Yeah.
need. So we found someone who sold really interesting glass art, bought a couple of pieces. We talked with the artist. We
Mm-hmm.
gave some specifications based on colors they like and the design that we wanted. And we really felt like we were in great hands with him. And what came to our house, two huge boxes with these big installations for the kids, and just a little something for my wife who had handled the interaction with him that now sits in our front room and it absolutely gets attention. And I don't know how many times just this little thing hanging over a mirror
Mm-hmm.
gets enough attention that we tell someone, oh yeah, go follow him on Instagram and here's his
Mm-hmm.
contact information and I'm sure he'd work with you to create. I don't know how much business we've generated for him, but a greater than N we have,
Right.
and it's little things.
Mm-hmm. It really is. It's the little things. We only have a few minutes left, but I want to ask you one more major thing, and I'm glad that we had this time to kind of share back and forth some ideas of what you can do to help you get your customers to love you. But what I really wanted to ask you is, because I struggle with this, but how to turn the we language into language focused more towards the audience, so you don't make it
Yeah,
sound corporate or it sounds like a company talking. It sounds like a person wrote this.
yeah, and this is the space that I live in, right? Because my work in my 20 corporate years before I started doing consulting and training was all about connecting with existing customers or existing partners, things like that, and culminated in the roles I had, like leading Microsoft's executive briefing center and program and getting
Mm-hmm.
those executive relationships going, and then doing speech writing for the woman who ran all of Microsoft's global customer support stuff. What I train in the workshops that I do is you've got, and what I write about incessantly and preach about is audience focused, benefit led communications. If
Mm-hmm.
you're still talking, and this happens a lot with technology companies, about your spiffy new tech, your great new interface, you're just not making the emotional connection.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
not that hard. Each year, I work with a software company back east that does an annual user conference. And the work that we do is basically just get them out of their own heads. All these product specialists, product marketers, product executives. I say, great, you've been working for the last year on building your new roadmap and putting in new functionality. Tell me about it.
Mm-hmm.
I get to help them turn it into, great, what's the use case for your customer? What does it mean to them? How does it make their day easier? How does it help them get closer with their
Mm-hmm.
customers, clients? And I mean, you've hit on it. The language that you use on your website, in your marketing, in the one-on-one meetings that sellers have with buyers,
Mm-hmm.
in the conferences that you run, or the whatever the format is, it's got to focus on what's the customer journey, both to engage with you, but also what they're doing when you're off the scene. How do they use your software? What are they trying to accomplish? What's their mission? How do you tie into it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not everything that companies do to build better relationships is that low-hanging fruit we've been talking about. There's plenty of more programmatic things that require investment and personnel.
Mm-hmm.
But it all starts with put the right words in front of your clients and get the right words coming out of your mouth, and
Mm-hmm.
that's half the battle.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And the throwing, I also like to throw in there that there has to be that human element to it. Otherwise, it just sounds so robotic.
And
So
the
I,
only
yeah.
way to do that is to get to know your
Mm-hmm.
customers or clients.
Yeah.
That's harder in a B2C environment for the most part. It's easier in B2B where there's longer sales cycles, more personal interaction. But even stepping back, if you're in the B2C space, great, go talk to the people who are buying from you. Send them thank
Mm-hmm.
you, ask them to give you feedback too. Understand what they're doing in reality when they're buying from you. Because
Mm-hmm.
nobody says after that, I need to buy something. They've got a goal for what they're
Yep.
buying
Yep.
in
Yep.
their
Yep.
head. And then you can talk to the rest of the people who feel like that person.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Representation matters.
Find your tribe, baby.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you'd like to share with the audience? We're
Well,
about at time.
yeah, I'll
That
go
went
for
by really quick.
I have God, I enjoy talking to you when there's a camera on or not.
Well, thank you. Same
The
here.
Yeah, oh, I mean www.3ccoms.com. That's sort of the obvious place to go. Oh, and look, you've got all the stuff on the crawl. I love it. But no, I mean, if you are passionate about getting the most out of the relationships that you have that drive your business, if you spent a long time worrying about putting new business into the top of the funnel,
Mm-hmm.
and you wake up one morning and realize, gosh, I've got a lot of customers. I should really be thinking about how to increase what I'm doing for them, with them, and what they in return are giving to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point at which I just love getting into that conversation. If you're
Absolutely.
looking to become a better business communicator, independent of the reason why, I love digging in and helping people get more confident with their writing and with their speaking. So those are the things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, if you want to hire Bryan, we do have a description down below, linking him or linking you to all of his social media and website information.
Yeah.
So wonderful. Again, Bryan, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, you're our fourth guest, and I'm just thrilled that you fit us in today.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, and I cannot wait to see you and the AMA Puget Sound team in person in 6-8 months.
Oh my gosh, I hope so. I really do. I really do. I'm being positive, and yeah, hopefully by 8-9 months.
Let's say, yeah,
we'll have the biggest party you've ever seen.
Heck yes. Hey, great holidays.
You too.
Yeah, just stay healthy, stay well, and enjoy being around the people that you can still be around.
Exactly. And I hope everybody had a great holiday weekend, and the year is almost over.
Remember how excited we were to say goodbye to 2019? 2020 kind of tripped us up, didn't it?
I feel so foolish.
May 2021 be way better, happy and healthy for everybody.
Exactly. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Bryan, and have a great one.
Thanks. Cheers.